What's up, guys? In this video, I want to go through another pre-calculus essential problems. And in this video, we're going to work on roots. But we're not just going to work on any root. We're going to work on the cube root. We're going to work on the fourth root. And then also we're going to work on square roots. Okay. Now, when we're dealing with square roots, there's a couple things that I just expect my pre-calculus students to know, right? And even going into my algebra 2, I was like, I want you guys to know these numbers. And I'll tell you a little story. I remember when I was in third grade. And that's the third grade. We were first like learning multiplication and learning, our times tables and stuff like that. And I remember the first numbers that I had memorized. I didn't have my times tables, all memorized exact, but I do remember having these numbers memorized. And I could be able to do these, on my own. 6 times 4, 44. 6. I'm just hoping I don't forget one as I'm kind of talking through this video. But the square numbers 1 through 10, I knew how to multiply them, right? 5 times 5, 25. 6 times 6 is going to be a 36, which I knew I was going to forget one. That's what happens when you talk and make a video going through there. So 6 times 6, 7 times 7, 8 times 8, 9 times 9, 10 times 10. Okay, good. So I got the rest of them. But I wanted to, make sure I'm like, all right, I knew these square numbers. And when I tell my students when they're entering algebra 2 or even pre-calculus, I'm like, guys, you need to know these square numbers. Like if I say 8 times 8, like you need to know 64. But what's also important about these is you need to be able to know these because we're going to be taking the square root of them. Like if I say, what's the square root of 25? You need to know that number is 5. Okay. Now that's really more in like algebra 1, algebra 2. Okay. So once we get into pre-calculus, I also say, guys, we're going to be dealing with some bigger numbers. So I'm really, really going to need you to know 11 times 11, 121. I'm going to need you to know 144, which is 12 times 12, 169, which is 13 times 13, 196, which is 14 times 14, and 225, which is 15 times 15. All right. Now we do get into 16, 17, 18, 19, but it's just not a lot. So I don't really expect my students to have, those memorized, but I do say, 20 times 20, which is 400, that does come up a lot. So I do want you to know that number, which is going to be 400. And then also another number that comes up more often than like 17 times 17 or 22 times 22 is 25 times 25. So you need to know 625. So again, the square root of 400 would be 20. The square root of 625 is going to be 25. Okay. So these are all square numbers that for pre-calculus students, I want you to know. Okay. I want you to know them like the back of your hand. So if you look at this, we have the square root of 25 and you're like, Mr. McLogan, I already know the square root of 25. So this one's going to be easy. So now we can simplify this. The cube root times the fourth root of 16 plus the square root of 625 is going to be a 25. Easy enough. Now, the nice thing about the cube roots and the fourth roots is, ladies and gentlemen, there's just not that many options for you to be. Like when you're taking the fourth root of a number, you got to think that is a number multiplied by itself 4 times, right? So to get to 16, I mean, ladies and gentlemen, we only have so many options. Like you can do this. I mean, like here are your 2 options. And let's even see what happens when we get to 2 from 3. So 2 times 2 is 4, times 2 is 8, times 2 is 16, which is the answer, right? So the fourth root of 16 is 2. But when we get to like 3, look how big this number gets. 3 times 3 is 9. 9 times 3 is 27. 27 times 3 is 81. Like we went from 16 to 81, right? So there's only so many numbers that we're going to get to. And even when you get into a 4, like 4 times 4 is going to be a 16. Times 4 is going to be 16 times, why am I forgetting this? It's going to be a 64. And then times 4 is going to 64. So that'd be 128 and 256. Like, do you guys see what's happening here? Like there's only so many numbers unless you're going to start getting really, really big numbers. Okay. So the fourth root of 16 is simply just going to be 2. So now I have the cube root of, let's see, that's going to be a 2 plus a 25. And then I get to the cube root of 27, which again, even for cube roots, guys, there's not that like, and if we start getting into bigger numbers, that's going to get really huge. Like 2 times 2 times 2 is 8. The cube root of 8 is 2. If I do 3 times 3 times 3, that's going to be 27, which again is what we're looking for. The cube root of 27 is our answer, but let's just kind of go through this real quick to finish off the video. 4 times 4 times 4, which we already talked about, is going to be a 64. And then you have 5 times 5 times 5, which is going to be 125. And you can see, ladies and gentlemen, we're already starting to get to really, really big numbers, okay? So when you have these smaller numbers, there's only really so many possibilities. You can think of them as like memorizing them. But ladies and gentlemen, when you work through a couple of these examples, you're going to get them kind of routinely memorized. But for square roots, I definitely want you to know all of these numbers. So therefore, you could probably do this problem, ladies and gentlemen, in your head. If you know these numbers very well, you could do this problem in your head. So again, to finish it off, the cube root of 27 is going to be 3. And this is a pre-calculus essential problems. If you're looking for more pre-calculus essential problems, then check out the next video I have for you here.